Welcome back, Empty Nation. It's been 2 weeks since we've been on because we just did the NFL draft coverage. We took a week off because Chris and I had to save our voices so we could come back today and start hammering away on these rookie dynasty mock drafts. That's what you're in store for today. I'm your host, Dan Mater, with, of course, my partner in crime, Christopher Howard, down in the bottom right corner. But we got two special guests today. We got Kyle and we got Steven on to talk about all of these fantasy picks, what value they have, where you should be taking them in your rookie mock drafts or your real drafts that should be underway. I know some of them have been happening over the past week. A lot of startup dynasty drafts will be happening over this past month because everyone's getting excited. It's football in the spring, baby. But first off, let's get to our guest. Kyle, how you doing today?
Oh, fantastic. Just coming off the Dynasty Gambit live show that was on just before, so it flows in nicely to this. So I'm already in the mid podcast rhythm to get going and talk some fantasy football.
He's already got the reps coming off the chest.
He was in rookie camp.
Steve, how you doing, man? Now, you and me, we're both Miami Heat fans, so we're flying pretty high right now.
Oh, yeah. I'm living life. I wish I wasn't just drinking tea, but actual drink right now to celebrate, but let's go Heat.
Did they make it Elimination Thursday officially?
They sure did. They destroyed the Sixers.
They sure did. Sixers gave up in the second half. And, of course, Chris, how you feeling after our, 10 hours of streaming between the first three rounds 2 weeks ago now?
Yeah, I think we're turning into veterans here, Dan. It was the second year that we've had, this extravaganza for ourselves in the fantasy draft. A combination of the fantasy draft and also betting. So I'm definitely trying to recover, but I'm with these two gentlemen. I'm excited about tonight. I think that we definitely are excited to kind of see what these rookies are going to do and going into the season. And we don't want your season to go up in flames like those, Sixers are. So we're trying to get you guys ready for your dynasty leagues.
Absolutely. And now that we have locations, our boards have all changed on what values we have for these rookies. Now, just to set the tone here, the rookie mock draft is not going to be based on Superflex. It is going to be based on one quarterback leagues. I did that for a couple of different reasons. The main one being, though, I don't want to spend too much time talking about quarterbacks that I don't care about. So that's why we do with the one quarterback league for this particular mock draft. So keep that in mind as we go along. We're going to talk about different players, where they're going, who we like, and, of course, our picks along the way, too. But I would be remiss if I did not break some unfortunate news that happened today.
Breaking news.
Jerry Jeudy did get arrested today for tampering with evidence. That's what the charge was, tampering for a domestic dispute. Whether he was involved with the domestic dispute himself, I still don't have all the details for it, but he was arrested for tampering at least with evidence. So that's going to have to play out. You guys pretty much know as much as we do at this point as far as what a potential suspension could be, what this could mean for Jerry Jeudy. But what I will say is that Courtland Sutton's value does rise. I don't know if anybody wants to comment on that. Go ahead, Steve.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if he does get suspended, I know the laws are very different in Colorado, so I'm not going to get into them because I don't know them that well. But what I've read so far is that this certain thing is a lot different in terms of the way that the Colorado does their laws over there. But, yeah, if Jerry Jeudy is out for a number of games, I mean, Courtland Sutton is just going to be the wide receiver one for this Denver Broncos without a doubt. Guys like KJ Hamler, someone who's going to step up for sure. Tim Patrick, the tight end situation, whoever kind of emerges from that competition now. Yeah, it's going to be really good for this core because we had a crowded wide receiver core up until now.
Well, I thought it was kind of funny because it was just yesterday that KJ Hamler was talking about, I want to be Russell Wilson's Tyler Lockett. I'm like, you're third in the depth chart. Well, maybe he knew something before we did. I don't know. Those comments would kind of make a little bit more sense. Let's get into this rookie mock draft, though, because it's going to be a lot to cover over the next hour. So I'm going to pull it up on the screen here so everybody can follow along. Now, we got the picks. Kyle is at the second pick. I have the sixth pick. Steve took 10, and Chris took 12. So we'll see how this works out. I also believe, yes, I did. So this is going to be a snake draft. So this is based on the idea that you've done a startup dynasty mock draft, and now you're just doing your rookie draft to go alongside with it after the words. Some people like to do it mixed in. I don't know, Kyle, do you have a preference when you do a startup dynasty draft? You want the rookies mixed in, or you rather have that be a separate draft?
I think the idea of more drafts is fun, right? That like you'd wanted for the separate draft simply just to have more drafts, even if it's fair, unfair. The idea you were saying though, if you're doing a snake draft with a startup, make the opposite order and snake draft the rookie draft. So whoever the 101, if you get screwed in the rookie draft, you don't, and you have the 112, 111, well, it's because you had the 101 early draft in the startup. So that kind of does give it that balance, less of a randomness also to what the startup order is. There's at least a kind of an opposite effect. I know sometimes you see the startup order, you reverse it, and that's the waiver priority to start, but that doesn't seem like that's enough. Like it really skews the other direction. You'd rather be early in a startup. So at least this way, especially this year, where it does feel like there's a clear 101, makes up for the fact that you're at the end of the first round of the startups. That would kind of seem fair, as well as more drafts, so funner as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. More drafts equals more fun. That's first and foremost. But I also agree with you. It gives you a way of equalizing things out. And make sure you do it that way. I have been a part of dynasty drafts where they have, even if it was a startup, we did a rookie mock draft and somebody still got stuck with the 12th pick for every single round. That's just not right. That shouldn't be happening. Not when you're starting up, at least for that first year. So kind of keep that in mind. We're trying to drop some knowledge on you guys for those who might be getting into dynasty for the first time this season. But Kyle makes an interesting take there. A clear 101. We'll have to see exactly when we get this thing kicked off. We have to see exactly how we feel about that. But what were you going to say?
Well, I wonder, you brought up startup then rookie draft. Any consideration to do the opposite? Have that same style, but do the rookie draft first and then the rest of the startup afterwards? Would there be any reasoning behind that? I know I've done that before in I guess my first ever dynasty league, but salary cap contract. So the format of the rookie draft and the auction draft afterwards always falls into place. So part of that kind of flows naturally to go every season. But if you're just doing a straight startup and you're only going to have a rookie draft every year, is there any credence to do the rookie draft first and then the rest of the startup afterwards?
I mean, that's an interesting thought. I would say I don't think it matters too much either way. So it just depends if you have a preference. I can't really think of any off the top of my head, and Chris, maybe you can help me out, but I can't think of any like pros or cons really either way to doing that necessarily.
No, I just think that would be something kind of a preference. And I think that, to your point, I think what you're kind of looking at is having that rookie class to kind of introduce the new, a new opportunity, and it's kind of you're building your team around in some senses and have that redraft afterwards. So I don't think the order is going to matter, but I do kind of like what you're bringing up. And I think definitely you want to have creative, you have some fun with it. Dan, I just have one question before we get started and,
Sure.
With the draft board. Can I take Cole Strange at some point here, or should I? I'm at the end of the draft, so I wasn't really sure if he's still going to be on the board. Should I, have that option?
Is Belichick in this mock? Because he might reach for it. That'd be the only danger.
I just wasn't sure.
Well, we may get to talk about
Tyquan
Taekwondo Thornton at some point during this rookie mock draft. That may actually come up at some point, I would have to imagine. All right, so I'm going to hit the start button here so we can get this thing going. Team 1 is on the board, and because I'm an idiot and did not set a time limit, the computer is not drafting right away. So let me change that real quick. I'll set it to 2 minutes for you guys here. So I'll pause it if you guys need more time.
Well, and there we go. The obvious 101, right? Breece Hall. I haven't been in a draft, although I know at Going for Two, we were kind of sharing some draft results together. I think we basically found one draft out of probably close to probably over 20 where he didn't go 101. So that's why I was saying clear tier 1, just because it seems like he's the 101 no matter what. And then 102 gets really interesting. That's kind of where I wanted to kind of come in. I haven't had any 102s yet, and I haven't really had to make this decision. So this does kind of force me to kind of think through this exercise going this way. So I don't know if you guys want me to talk through the pick or if you had any thoughts about Breece Hall you wanted to share.
I'm just curious.
Go ahead, Chris.
I was just going to say, I'm curious, is Breece Hall necessarily the clear number 1? I think, obviously running back's a value and a guy that you want to have on your team, but you look at a situation, we were kind of talking off air before the show about the 49ers backfield and kind of, the flavor of the month, so to speak. The Jets haven't really shown you a true affirmation for any of the running backs yet. Michael Carter played really well last year. Will there be an opportunity for him to kind of split carries and kind of, vulture him? So I look at, some other guy maybe on the board that maybe have less threats to that. So, I mean, I don't argue Breece Hall is definitely my favorite running back in this draft coming out. But having said that, do you guys think he is a clear number 1?
Well, that's part of the discussion I wanted to bring up. Yes, I think most people, they think he's the top running back. And when you're the top running back, you're usually the 101 pick in Dynasty because getting you young is essential as a running back. At the same time, Chris, I'm with you. I know this team background. I know what the coaching staff wants to do. They brought back Tevin Coleman. Even if he gets for the 5 touches a game. I still expect Michael Carter to get 8 to 10 touches. Now, all of a sudden, we're looking at 15 touches there. Breece Hall, at most, is looking at 15 touches himself. And by the way, that's not something that's just an issue for 2022. That's what this coaching staff does. So unless you're going to tell me Robert Saleh or at least Matt LaFleur is going to be fired at the end of the season, they'll have a different philosophy heading into 2023. I think there is concern to think Breece Hall could turn into what Najee Harris gave you last year, which I think was what some people are going to do. And Kyle, I'm going to pause the draft so you can actually look at your picks there. But Steve, what do you have?
So it's a really close one to me. I think you could take Breece Hall 1, but I've really been flirting with the idea with Kenneth Walker, and a lot of people are either high on Walker or they're kind of down on him, and they kind of goes after these wide receivers. But with Walker, everyone's concerned about his, pass catching ability, but he didn't see enough, I think, in college to really determine if he can be a great pass catcher or not. Personally, to my opinion, there. And the way I'm looking at it is that Walker has a better shot to be a true workhorse back early on in that Seattle offense. We've seen Seattle over their last decade or two now that they've had, workhorse back with Chris Carson's, Marshawn Lynch, Sean Alexander back in the day. I mean, Walker easily could be a guy who sees 15 to 20 touches easily in any game. With Penny, his injury concern, Chris Carson might never play again. I think Walker could make a case as the top back right now, and honestly, the top player in this draft.
I don't know if it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, but them drafting Walker really seems like that hurts Chris Carson's chances of going back, or in Seattle's mind, like that's them admitting that there's a very minimal chance he's back.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree. As soon as they made that pick, especially with their first pick in the second round, that's exactly how I felt, Kyle. It's just that they must feel like Chris Carson's chances of being able to return the football at least anytime soon might be off the table. When it comes down to a neck injury, I mean, it can get really scary. So for player safety in that, I don't want to see anything significantly bad happen to him, but that is running a real risk. And if that's going to be the case for Rashad Penny, Steve, like you said, he's only on a 1-year contract, plus he gets hurt all the time. So the question then becomes with the Kenneth Walker, is it the offense you don't trust because it's going to be a Drew Lock, Geno Smith-led offense as far as we can tell to this point, and they've already been very vanilla with their play calling? Are you worried about that aspect of it? And I think that's what you have to decide on. Are you going to get that usage, or are you worried about the offense being so crappy that Kenneth Walker can't be a great fantasy aspect for you? But Kyle, who are you going with?
Well, I actually like Marcus Mariota better, so that's why I'm going Drake London there, as we see the picks fly off the board. But I guess the idea of, pre-combine especially, I had Walker ahead of Hall just slightly, but then, and Walker had a pretty good combine. I think his relative athletic score is like 923, so pretty good. But, when Breece Hall is 996 and it's almost a perfect, athletic specimen, that really speaks volumes. And I don't know I think I'd rather trust the Jets offense personally, mostly the coaching staff, as opposed to the Seahawks offense. So enough of a tier break to where, London's my wide receiver 1. Clearly I took him. So that's kind of, and also maybe under the guise of what I was kind of saying, the alternate of the rookie draft before the startup. So this team has nothing at all, no needs at all, and kind of go purely best player available. And before the draft, I had 2 wide receivers that I really thought could be the wide receiver 1, Drake London, Treylon Burks. Still kind of view them as the top 2, but I think maybe what the draft capital and landing spots have done is kind of put London ahead of Burks for me. So I don't have any Drake London yet. So this is the first time I get to draft him. So maybe that was feeling exciting there. So Drake London, the pick at 1.
Let's dive into that. I find that really intriguing. And I don't necessarily disagree with you, but I do find it intriguing when you're talking about you like the situation of a Drake London on Atlanta with Mariota and I guess Desmond Ridder, and we'll see at quarterback because I don't really think Ritter's going to necessarily be the answer. But with Treylon Burks, we've seen Ryan Tannehill be able to feature A.J. Brown with all of his shortfalls. You still have A.J. Brown as a top receiver there. The targets are going to be up for grabs. So what is it about Drake London's situation with Atlanta that you like so much more than Treylon Burks, or just a little bit more maybe?
Well, I think volume might be the key there, right? And just like the identity of the offense needing to flow through the passing game. Maybe Mariota doesn't spark that type of confidence that like a Matt Ryan, he's going to throw it 680 times every time to that type of volume. But I also think you mentioned it, like Atlanta probably is almost better situated to replace and upgrade their quarterback room to get Drake London a true elite quarterback, as opposed to Tennessee. I mean, if they're moving on from Tannehill, it's probably because they're going with Malik Willis. And, this might be a great rookie year for Burks, but does he regress if they do move on from Tannehill and they go with Willis? Or, maybe Tannehill does extend his time frame and then Burks does end up being the better pick. So I think that's maybe what's slightly pushing it. Again, I already had them 1-2, so to me, it didn't seem like a massive jump to leap London over Burks for those reasons.
I like it. I like it. All right, Chris. So after that, Kenneth Walker comes off, then Treylon Burks, and then Garrett Wilson. Do you have anything to comment with those three picks? All three, 4, 5.
I definitely agree with the Walker points that you guys were talking about earlier. One of the things, though, for me, why I got kind of sold, and Dan knows this, I wasn't a huge fan necessarily going into the draft, but I will give the guy who's very explosive. And we look at the Seattle offense, a lot of people are kind of down the offense. I don't disagree. Geno Smith and Drew Lock are not the answers, but they do have hella weapons on the outside right now with DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and they did invest in a second-round pick in Dwayne Eskridge last year. So they have guys that can kind of make playmakers. Noah Fant to tight end position. You added 2 tackles in this draft. When you look at their offense and Pete Carroll in general, I think I do trust Pete Carroll more than I trust that Jets offense, because I think that Pete Carroll has shown you, as that our guests alluded to, that they're Sean Alexander, Marshawn Lynch. You can go on Chris Carson. You can go on the list for Seattle. To me, this reminds me of a situation. Shane Waldron came from the Rams. Reminds me of Cam Akers situation when the Rams kind of took him and he kind of took over that backfield. I wouldn't be surprised if Walker becomes the man sooner than later. So I think that was a fantastic, value pick for them. But I also love Drake London as well. I think that, to me, this is the Cooper Cup of this draft. A 6'5" guy who can play in the slot, can play on the outside, and just kind of a quarterback's best friend. I'm also more higher than Mariota. Most are. And I think that Arthur Smith is kind of sold me on that he can get the slot receivers the ball. Especially, you saw Russell Gage have a good year last year. So I think you put all those things together. I think Drake London is definitely one of the safest guys you can have in this draft.
Steve, you want to jump in there? I think you're on mute, buddy.
Sorry about that, guys. I mean, the way the first 5 picks have gone, I think it's what I've seen in a lot of drafts are pretty. This is basically it, the swip swap between Walker and London. But London gives you plenty of opportunity for sure early on in his career. And if you're looking for that, I think that's a great situation. You have to assume that Atlanta is not going to be great. They're going to have an opportunity to upgrade at quarterback. Like, I think I'm with you, Dan. I don't think Ritter is going to be the answer long term. So they have a good opportunity with that 2023 class. Treylon Burks I have him over London personally. I just feel like he is a bigger version of A.J. Brown who can do very similar things, especially underneath. And I think Ryan Tannehill will use him early and often. And Bob Woods, I love Bob Woods, but if he's going to be the same player after his ACL injury, who knows? And then Garrett Wilson, his talent overall just thrives. And I'm one of the bigger Zach Wilson believers. So I love these first 5 picks here so far.
I like it. I do want to jump in there with the Treylon Burks and have a Garrett Wilson thing to talk about, and then I'll talk about my own pick. But I am going to start the clock there for you, Steve, so you can select what you want to do. So with Treylon Burks, I do have him slightly ahead of Drake London, mostly because I think he has a higher ceiling heading into 2022. Now, after that point, it may be a little wonky depending upon what the quarterback situations wind up being. But I do look at it as, if Malik Willis were to take over, he's not an accurate guy. Therefore, he's probably going to lean more so on the bigger wide receiver, the guy who has more of a wingspan, the guy who's going to be able to, reach out and limit the amount of off placement throws that Willis is going to have and still be able to come down with the football. Robert Woods, as we know, is the type of guy that he's a precise route runner. He needs accuracy to really be at his best. And that's not something I think Malik Willis is going to be able to give him. So even as the transition from Ryan Tannehill to Malik Willis happens, I think Treylon Burks has more of a chance to stay that number 1. Now, Atlanta could wind up with a really good quarterback that we're not foreseeing right now. And I do love Drake London. I don't want to get that twisted here. But I do like where Treylon Burks is in his situation more right now. Now, I do want to talk about Garrett Wilson a little bit. And I talked about this during the NFL draft coverage that Chris and I did. First of all, it breaks my heart that the Jets took Garrett Wilson because, again, going back to that system has a historic issue with only featuring one good wide receiver at a time. So whether that wide receiver brings up Garrett Wilson, fine, but that means Elijah Moore gets thrown to the wayside. If it winds up being Elijah Moore, that means Garrett Wilson doesn't come through fruition the way we would have expected him to. So either way, I feel like I get boned a little bit here, guys. Like I want Elijah Moore and Garrett Wilson to do great. And as much as I love Zach Wilson, I go back to that offensive scheme. Deebo Samuel, back in the day, it was Julio Jones. The list goes on and on as far as they only feature one type of wide receiver.
Pierre Garçon, right back with Washington when he was the OC there. Pierre Garçon.
Yeah.
And Pierre Garçon, right, correct. And that's the only thing that kind of worries me a little bit when it comes to a Garrett Wilson with the Jets. Maybe he is that one, and he'll be great. But then that means Elijah Moore's value is going to go way down. So it's just a very tricky situation. As much as I love Garrett Wilson, I was sad to see him go to the Jets for that reason. Go ahead, somebody jump in.
I was just going to say real quick, and I definitely agree with you 100%. And one of the things with that system, the reason that often happens is they like guys who can block out there. Typically, that second receiver is the guy that can kind of help crack block to help spring that vaulted running game. So when you look at their receivers, Elijah Moore, Braxton Berrios, and Wilson, none of those guys are blocking anybody. So somebody's going to give, and you start looking at snaps and who's going to play where. And as Dan's alluded to, that's when you start getting really concerned. Where Brandon Ayuk looked like a breakout candidate last year and wound up being a guy that you really regretted basically drafting. There was definitely rumors about what happened during their preseason, but most of that, if you look at the track record, Devontae Adams was great, who's been great in Green Bay the last few years. So if you come with the McVay tree, different story. But if you come with the Shanahan tree, this seems to be the problem.
Yeah, I agree. So I wanted to make that point to go to my Chris Olave pick at number 6, which is I'm glad I got Chris Olave at number 6 because I would have taken him over Garrett Wilson had I had a choice between the two anyway. I love his situation. First of all, I know Jameis Winston is a solid quarterback. We know he can at least make fantasy relevant wide receivers, if nothing else. Michael Thomas coming back is not a given. And even if he is able to make a return for week 1, who knows how long he's able to stay out on the field. This is a guy who's not been productive and barely on the field for 2 to 3 seasons now. So Chris Olave comes in. He's already a good route runner. He can already go deep. He can already play inside. And I have more faith that he's going to be on the field for more games than a Michael Thomas will this season. And this is a team we've seen by the moves that they've made this offseason, despite the fact that they don't have Sean Payton, believes they are a playoff team. I think they're going to, in order to do that, you're going to have to allow Jameis Winston to be a little bit more aggressive than what he was in the first half of the season last year. I really like a Chris Olave for 2022, and I think he's a great talent. So I like it for the future too. Kyle, I don't know if you want to comment on Chris Olave.
Well, I guess first, before we get to Olave, back to Wilson.
Sure.
Does that mean that is Burks and London a clear top tier for you of just those two receivers, or is this a larger tier where this does run 5 deep and just Burks and London happen to be at the top?
No, as far as the rookie drafts are concerned, I do have London and Burks, and then a tier down to the rest of the guys from there.
Okay. Yeah, and then obviously again, you're saying Olave over Wilson, so clearly they're in the same tier. And right. Do Williams, the next couple guys, kind of fall into that tier? Is like the second tier a bit bigger?
I would say it's Wilson, Olave, and Williams, and then I have another drop off from that point when we start talking about Sky Moore and some of those other guys as we get down there. So there would be a third tier right after that. So
really drawing the line at who were the first round NFL wide receivers, aside from Dotson, who we probably didn't like the profile and really don't like the landing spot. So there's no.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I was like, I think we are on the same page when it comes to Dotson. We're not really fans.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But yeah, in terms of Olave over Williams, that seems like that's a tough decision where a lot of people may be faced with those decisions. So I think you gave some good reasonings as to why Olave might be the answer there. Maybe there's more of a chance he's an alpha for his team than say Williams is, who might, maybe does eventually become that with the Lions, but does seem like that's maybe a spot where he might end up being buried a little more and not being able to be the true number one guy. Whereas maybe it's not the greatest chances for Olave, but probably better chances.
Yeah, and Williams is so hard for me, and we'll get Steve in here on this take because I love Williams. And honestly, like, had he not been hurt, I would really had a mindset that I was going to make Williams my number one wide receiver coming into the NFL draft. Now, he goes to the Lions. There's a clear pathway for him to become the number one receiver there. We like St. Brown, but we know he's not really that alpha guy. But you still have to deal with Jared Goff. We know they'll look to move on to a different quarterback when they get the opportunity to do so. But who that is, when that will be, that all comes into a question mark. But I know I don't like him with Jared Goff. I can tell you that much because he doesn't throw the ball deep. So what do you think about Jameson Williams? Does he still stay in that number 2 tier like I have him, or are you a little worried about his situation?
Well, yeah, the second tier for me, and I know maybe I'm a little more higher on Wilson having him in the top tier, but I do feel like that second tier to me, maybe I'm not so high on Olave, really does blur the line, and I'm willing to put guys like Sky Moore and Christian Watson, maybe even George Pickens in that second tier, even if they weren't first round NFL drafted wide receivers, which is why I don't really have any Olave or Williams yet. Do not really feel the need to pick there, trade out if needed, or just haven't gotten the picks in those ranges yet.
Steve, you want to get off mute for us? There you
go. I'm here.
I want to get your take because you're going to be the next guy up to talk about. But in between our picks, Williams goes, Sky Moore, James Cook. You wind up taking Christian Watson. So were you hoping that one of those three fell to you there? And then why did you go with Watson?
So, yeah, I mean, Sky Moore and Williams, I would have loved to get. I'm still not 100% in on the James Cook love. I know there's so many people that are. To me, I feel like because of his landing spot and obviously the draft capital still, people are just loving it. And I get it. There's a lot of great things about him. His pass catching ability is top-notch, fantastic when you watch it on film. To me, I don't know if he's ever going to be a true feature back and going, in the top 9 picks right here. I just feel like there's some more risk involved. I mean, I know people like Austin Eckler's made it work, but, it took Eckler some time to really gauge that role for himself there. And I don't know if guy like Josh Allen is going to be able to just dump it off consistently enough to get him to that top tier production that as an Austin Eckler would. Honestly, I think that guy like Allen likes to throw the ball downfield more often. I just feel like James Cook kind of gets out of favor in that sense there. And I just don't believe he's going to be a guy who's going to be the in between the tackles consistent threat there. And that's I'm not the only guy I was like, I'm okay not missing on. But for my guy personally, I went with Christian Watkins. And at this point in the draft here, I mean, you could take one of these running backs here that just went after me, or you could take someone that has tremendous upside with a Hall of Fame quarterback in Aaron Rodgers right now. And Watson has an opportunity in this Packers offense to kind of do a lot of work. And a lot of people compare him to MVS, and he has that speed there, but I feel like he can do a lot more. He's got really good footwork, and I feel like he has untapped potential that MVS just never showed us over his 6-year career now, 4-year career at this point. I think Watson at this point of the draft, it has major upside in his game here that, yes, he's coming from a D2 school, but I think working with this offense here in the way that there's no real alpha wide receiver on this team at this point, that Watson has a real big opportunity to succeed as that alpha guy and be that downfield threat for Aaron Rodgers in a team that, again, just needs wide receivers so bad right now.
Well, I first of all, I love the pick because, yes, you are taking a wide receiver who's got the chance to be Aaron Rodgers' #1 guy. There's already all kinds of benefits that come into that sentence right there, possibly. But the other aspect of that is you take Watson over a Jahan Dotson. So do you agree? Kyle and I were talking about this just a second ago. Do you agree then that Jahan Dotson, even though he has the first-round capital, is somebody who's just not in that same tier when it comes to his first-round wide receivers in rookie drafts?
No, I don't think he's in that same tier. I think he's in another tier, which we'll find out real soon. But the way I see Dotson is that I'm saying some negative things about him right now, but I just don't see him to be a true alpha kind of type of wide receiver in this league here. For one, again, he's going to a situation which I'm not really thrilled with, because if Carson Wentz doesn't work out, I don't really know what direction the Commanders are going moving forward, that quarterback situation, because I don't know if they're going to be that bad of a team where they're going to have an opportunity to really pick in the top 10. And last time they did that, it didn't really work out for them, obviously. So Jahan Dotson, I feel like he's a better 2. I feel like he's a guy who needs an alpha wide receiver to take that coverage off him and then allow him to kind of do the work he can. But with Terry McLaurin possibly leaving town, he could be forced into that role there. And I feel like it will be a mistake if Washington allows that to happen for Dotson right now.
Okay. I like it. Chris, let's kick this thing to you, and then we'll have to take a break after that. But so Dameon Pierce comes off the board in between you and Steve. Then you go with Tyler Algier as your first-round pick. So walk me through that. Would you have taken Dameon Pierce over Tyler Algier, and why'd you go with Algier there at the first-round pick?
Well, first, I just want to comment that I would take Jameson Williams over Olive. I love Olive. I think that what you talk about makes absolute sense. Jameis Winston could be the answer at the quarterback. He definitely could feature receiver down the field. And I love Chris Olave's upside. I think he's probably better served as #2 receiver. Well, I think Williams, this kid's special, and I think that just getting the balls in his hands, he could do Tyreek Hill type of things, and I think that's where for me he belongs in kind of that his own little tier in between the top two, as you guys talked about, in that second tier. I think Jameson Williams is the guy that I think falls in that kind of special spot for my book. Maybe you're not going to get what you want necessarily this year, but even that's not a guarantee. You're a lot to talk about him being ready to play, start the season. So this guy, what you saw last year isn't just a guy who can run fast, run straight, run fast. This guy can do a lot of things with the ball in his hand and creates incredible separation. So I just wanted to point that out there. But for the running back situation, I was kind of hoping maybe Christian Watson would fall. I 100% agree. It's a great thing. I hate the MVS comparison. This guy's so much more talented than MVS ever will be. I think more of a guy that, not necessarily the skill set per se, but just look at a 6'5" guy, big, strong, tall, the good quarterback veteran. Chase Claypool is probably a guy you would look at kind of, easy numbers you can kind of see projecting into this guy's hands without having to go, outrageously out. This guy's going to be next to Devontae Adams necessarily. But for myself, I went with the running backs. I really struggled with the Dotson thing. You made a great point about, to me, was does he replace Terry McLaurin or not? If he replaces Terry McLaurin, it's a home run pick, and I think you have to have it. If he doesn't, I think his coaching staff could be on its way out as well. You have Curtis Samuel, a guy that's kind of iffy. Terry McLaurin, a quarterback situation is iffy. Offensive line is pathetic. You put all those situations together, there was too many questions for me to kind of take the capital. Where what I'm trying to do is Tyler Algier. I like him. I love the fit. Number one with Arthur Smith. I love this guy as a downhill runner. He kind of burst onto the scene last year, so he doesn't have a lot of wear and tear on his body, but he runs hard and he runs fast, upright middle. Derrick Henry did really, really well and kind of had a boost in his career after Arthur Smith took over. If Tyler Algier could catch lightning in a bottle, I'm trying to take that shot with myself in the first round. Dameon Pierce, I know a lot of people liked him analytics-wise. They kind of projected him. Look what he did in a couple of games that he played in Florida with his carries. If he got more carries, what he could do. Well, guess what? He's in the Texans. And until they get different coaching staff, they were using Rex Burkhead and anything else they could possibly scrounge out there in the backfield. So there was never a clear-cut guy necessarily. David Johnson got a chance to be back there. They were just throwing guys out there. So I don't think it's going to change necessarily this year or moving forward anytime soon. So for me, that situation might not change just because you're in the NFL. It might be to continue what you saw in Florida, a guy that kind of gets touch here or there, but that's not going to win me dynasty. To cover myself and kind of Tyler Algier, I think he's going to be a productive guy immediately. I went kind of a long shot with my second pick, and I went with Zach White. Or I'm sorry, Steve.
Hold on, save that for when we come after break. So just talk about Algier.
Yeah,
are
so
you done with Algier?
I'm done with So basically, I'm hoping to get Derrick Henry in a bottle in a sense.
Okay.
If I can add one thing about Algier real quick, I don't know about what you guys have seen so far in rookie drafts, but I think he's had the widest disparity of like where he's going in terms of ranges. Like in super flex leagues, I've seen him go as high as 202, but then as low as the late third. Like he might be the RB3 in one draft, the RB10 in another draft. So it's not. Especially this is a 1 QB league. You're not taking Kenny Pickett in the first round. Not crazy to see Algier go this high, especially in this little bit of a running back run here. But yeah, I think he so far for myself, he's had the widest range of outcomes of where he's going in rookie drafts.
It's a matter of, do you believe is he talented enough with the situation he finds himself in? But you're absolutely 100% correct. In all the drafts I've been in, Algier is somebody who can either fall or he's been going always high as the first round. This is not the first time I've seen this happen. So you're absolutely correct. Just depending on where do you talent him and the situation that he's in, because it is a good situation. Does he have enough talent to be able to come through with it? But we got to take a quick break. When we come back on the other side, we'll continue on our rookie mock draft. We'll do our rounds 2, 3, 4 a little bit more quickly, but that's okay because we have to talk about these first round guys. Those are the ones that are going to make and break your team. So everybody stay tuned to the MD's Fantasy Football Show. We'll be back right after this. Summer is coming. The sun is shining. Shirts are off and your balls are smooth. You heard that right. Your friends at Manscaped are here to make sure your beach balls are as smooth as Floridian sand. In summer, you want to kill some cold beers and barbecues, not kill the vibe with pubes peeking out of your swim trunks. That's why Manscaped has their Performance Package 4.0 to keep the party in your pants looking crisp and refreshing all summer long. Dive head first into the summer by joining the 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped, and get ready for hot guy summer by going to manscaped.com for 20% off and free shipping with the promo code BELLYUPFANTASY. The Manscaped Performance Package 4.0 has everything you need to prepare for that summer bod. Inside this package, you'll find their Lawnmower Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer, Crop Preserver ball deodorant, Crop Reviver toner, and Performance Boxer briefs with a travel bag to hold all your goodies. Want to take your grooming to games even further? Take a look at Manscaped Shears 2.0, a package that has everything you need to look pristine. Nail cutters, tweezers, and grooming scissors. With the Performance Package 4.0, your balls will be ready to impress, but make sure you cover the rest with the Shears 2.0 and you'll be ready to perform from head to toe. Get 20% off and free shipping with the promo code BELLYUPFANTASY at manscaped.com. And one more time, that's promo code BELLYUPFANTASY for 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com. This is the summer to turn your package into the full package with Manscaped.
You're listening to the MD's Fantasy Football Show.
And welcome back in, everybody, to the MD's Fantasy Football Show, where we're giving you a rookie startup dynasty mock draft here tonight. Of course, I'm your host, Dan Mater, joined here with Chris Dowhower. We got two great guests been going with us for the first half hour of the show, Steven Pintado and Kyle Senra. Now, let's get back to Chris, because you had your first pick for the second round. I'm going to start the clock so Steve can make his pick and we can get this thing moving along.
Yeah, so I want Zaire White, the Raiders running back, a guy that's probably might have to wait for and invest in your capital in. But what I'm looking at is probably a starting position opportunity at least next year. Jacobs' fifth-year option was not picked up. Josh McDaniels took over the coaching staff. We've seen him use Damian Harris. We've seen him use Stevenson. We've seen him use other physical running backs, Sonny Michel, for example. Guys that he'll kind of run out there and give that first two-down role. I think this guy's a clear role moving forward. The Raiders have an offense with Devontae Adams and Derek Carr that I think can move the ball. So this is a guy I'm hoping for, maybe not this year. With Algier kind of, I think, covering me this year, I'm kind of trying to get myself insurance in my backfield moving forward.
Zamir White. I don't think he's good, period. And that's my ultimate problem with him. Look, they didn't pick up Josh Jacobs' option, so he could be on his way out after this season. We know Drake's probably on his way out of this season. So there's a pathway after 2022 for Zamir White. But you have to think he's good. I don't. Maybe I'm wrong. Who wants to jump in there?
But I mean, I think he's pretty good. I like the running talent. I know the pass catching, like we talk about, Kenneth Walker and the fear of him not being able to catch passes. I think he kind of showed enough at the combine drills and seems like from just the pro days and everything, like he's got the ability. But Zamir White, you might actually be worried about him not being able to catch passes. But from a pure runner, I actually do really like the talent. And you will say it does go to an offense where, I mean, last year they finally started throwing to Josh Jacobs, but we'll see with the whole new coaching staff if that keeps going. But traditionally that team has not thrown much to a running back. So maybe a guy like White, you're not so concerned. Oh, he can't catch passes. He probably wasn't going to anyway there. So I actually like him as probably a top 10 running back. I know probably wouldn't have been the running back I would have chosen, but I'm also apparently really high on another guy that I actually have as my RB3. So.
I was going to say that Josh McDaniels is the new head coach there, and that has kind of been his MO in New England. You look at all different backfields. I'm a huge Sonny Michel fan. I never thought he was only a two-down back, but Josh McDaniels kind of pigeonholes you in those roles. So this guy to me has a clear role that he's obviously going to kind of try to fit him into.
Remember, he's got an injury history too, guys. So don't forget that he's got 2 torn ACLs over the last 5 years of his football career. So you got to take that into some account there as well.
Well, and that plays into his running style, which is it runs very violently, which allows him to pick a couple extra yards. I do like that, but my big problem with Zamir White is he runs too high. He runs too high, which leads to those injuries in the first place. I just don't think he has a long career in the NFL ahead of him, and I think there is some question if he's going to really be the guy after Josh Jacobs or not.
Yeah, for a fourth round NFL pick, you can't really just say, okay, he's the heir apparent, right? Like they could easily overdraft him next year, sign free agents. I will say though, to your point, Chris, of the roles, right? Like he's probably has, he profiles to have the type of role you want. The goal line guy, the short yardage, the touchdown upside is kind of, and that's maybe back to James Cook. It's the absence of that maybe is what we're kind of all saying is the fear of taking James Cook in the first round is not having that touchdown upside. As granted, as good of an offense it is.
Yeah, so the computer then actually picked George Pickens over Jahan Dotson too. Jahan Dotson falls to Steve. So Steve, walk us through that little tidbit there.
Yeah, I mean, we said a lot of negative things about him, last round, but in round two, it's good value at this point here. You're getting a guy who was a first round capital wide receiver, and he does go to a good offense, and it will be interesting to see how they really use him. The OC Scott Turner, he was really creative using Curtis Samuel back in Carolina a few years ago when Curtis Samuel had his best season. Obviously, we haven't seen that from him this past year, and who knows if he's even going to make the team. I mean, you just don't know at this point. But Dotson is someone, he isn't going to be going down the backfield and doing running plays, but he's someone who's electric. He's fast. He's someone who can go all over the field. They can use him as a really big gadget player any which way. And I think at this point in round two, you're getting a guy with that kind of upside, and it's worth taking a shot in a round two situation right here. And that's why I took him, because he's at capital. He's probably going to be the wide receiver 2 on this team, potentially 1. And at the round 2, you can't beat it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. When we get to round 2, then I'm willing to talk about the guys like Jahan Dotson who had the draft capital, and we'll see what happens in taking those shots. And that's the thing about rookie drafts in general, I think, actually. When you get past that first round, you really are taking lottery tickets as soon as that second round really sets up. I mean, that's how quick the surefire talent, if you will, kind of dries up. So don't go into your drafts thinking like, oh, in the second round, I'm going to get another stud. You're looking at lottery tickets there when you get to that point too.
It might be the end of the first, honestly. Like 111, 112, you might already be taking lottery shots.
Totally agree. So after that, of course, Trey McBride comes off. Isaiah Spiller comes off. And the guy who I was going to go with, Rachaad White, comes off. Stupid computer at pick team 7. I hate you. But so I take Alec Pierce. Now I'll pull it up here. I got to remind myself here. I had a choice between Alec Pierce and Jalen Tolbert. And I was going back and forth with that a little bit in my mind. Ultimately, I go with Pierce. Again, with Dynasty, yes, you're thinking about the future. But I typically, when I'm building my team out, I only think about 2, maybe 3 years down the road. But I'm looking at more immediacy because so much in the NFL can change from year to year in an offseason. When I look at Alec Pierce, I see a guy who might be their deep field threat for the Colts this season. He might be that perfect complement to a Michael Pittman this year, and something they desperately needed last year, right? I mean, the whole reason they even brought back T.Y. Hilton to begin with was just to have somebody who might be able to stretch the field. I like Alec Pierce in that role a lot. I think he fell into the perfect situation there with the Indianapolis Colts. Give me a guy who I think is going to have the big playability to win me a few weeks. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with your strategy. I'm not looking too far down the road. That's kind of what I was looking with my draft picks as well. But I think that you're looking at a receiver that definitely could be productive immediately, and I like his long-term future. This is a guy that can catch the long ball. He's going to catch the deeper throws. And Cortland Sutton was really good until last year. Unfortunately, he kind of fell off for him, but this guy's able to get down the field. And when you have receivers that tall, that big, that get down the field consistently, they're definitely valuable, especially in fantasy where you're just looking for a guy who can get, 4 or 5 catches and make those big plays. This guy reminds me a lot of, now, not necessarily as skilled as T. Higgins, but I think his role could be very similar when he kind of profiles that when he brings into the NFL. So I think it's got a lot of upside.
Now, am I crazy? Should I have gone the other way, or would you guys have gone somewhere else, Steve, while Kyle makes his pick?
No, I think this was the pick to make at this point of the draft, to be honest, right now. I mean, I love that you made this pick here because I've been trying to get as much Alec Pierce as I can. I mean, I feel like he will fit this offense really nicely. That, they need someone, a vertical threat right now in this offense. The defense is going to be focused on Jonathan Taylor right now. Matt Ryan might not have the same arm he did 5 years ago, but he can still throw the long ball if he needs to. And I feel like Alex Pierce has an opportunity to have some early on success in his NFL career right now. So at this point of the draft, what you're looking at, he's someone who could easily be the wide receiver 2 or even second pass catcher on the team. I don't really think anyone at this point past this. Maybe the guy you mentioned, Jalen Tolbert, can be that number 2 guy for an NFL team early on in their career.
Well, and I think the first 9 receivers off the board in this mock seem to be the first 9 going off the board in rookie drafts. So kind of a clear tier. Who's that receiver 10? And I think You didn't have to pick because I was just about to pick because I was going to make
it. I will resume it for you here then.
To basically say though, I think there's really two that I'm heavily debating between on who's the wide receiver 10. I think I would lean Pierce, to be fair, so I probably would have made the same choice as you there, Dan. But I think just as good of an alternate. And what I've done in rookie drafts is, I remember I purposely took this player once because I already had a Pierce share, and I just kind of wanted to diversify. So I like John Mechie as well. I know dealing with a bit of an injury. I was also, it's funny, Dan, similar decision to you. I was debating between Mechie and Tolbert, but as we see, Tolbert went out immediately after. So now I will have to think a little bit here.
No, look, Mechie's in an interesting situation. So I think Mechie is that prototypical possession complementary type receiver. I think that's what his ceiling is in his NFL career. Falls to Houston, where day one that could be the case. I mean, goodbye, Nico Collins. Your time was nice, but it's over after 1 year basically already. Assuming John Mechie's healthy enough to be able to suit up and go, and from what I understand, that's expected to be the case. If they were to move on from Brandon Cooks, well, this isn't a good offense, but he's going to have a floor when it comes to target share at the very least for Mechie. So I think he's in an interesting situation where I don't think he has the top end talent. I don't think he has the potential of an Alec Pierce. I don't know if he has the potential of a Jalen Tolbert, but he's in a nice situation, and I do think he's a nice enough player. What do you think, Chris?
I think you're selling him a little short. I think because everybody has kind of the memories of the other Alabama receivers, they kind of sell this guy. No, he's not Jerry Jeudy. No, he's not Devontae Smith or Jameson Williams. But this guy is a really good receiver. He was going to be one of the top guys until he got injured. And I think when you look at a guy that's definitely a starting slot receiver in the NFL, I think he can maybe possibly be more, but I think he's going to be a good slot receiver. And we know that definitely could pay off, particularly if you're in PPR leagues. Or dynasty leagues where you're looking for to get every valuable guy you can get. They can get that 6-7 catches for those yards for you. This guy I think has a little bit more than just a 6 catch. He's not like a Byron Pringle necessarily where he's going to catch 6 catches 60 yards. I think he's got more upside than that. He's a little more explosiveness. He definitely is better after the tackle than some of those guys in the slot that we see in the NFL right now. So I think this guy actually a little bit gets kind of sold short just because he doesn't necessarily profile like his other counterparts have, but he brings a different skill set that's very valuable still in the NFL.
Steve, help me out with this one real quick. I've been having a conundrum with this player because I love him, but I don't like his situation. I have a lot of question marks. That player is David Bell. Now, he went off right before Kyle's pick there when he took Mechie. I think I don't care about his combine, first and foremost. I'm going to throw it out the window. This guy was born to play wide receiver. I don't think anybody who actually watches his tape for a second can argue with that at all. But I do have concerns about him landing in Cleveland. One, I think he's a similar receiver to that of an Amari Cooper, or at least the role in which I expect Cooper to play in this Cleveland offense. I still have big question marks about what Stefanski's going to do with Deshaun Watson now that he's there as a quarterback, because Stefanski ain't a pass-first guy. That's not what he wants to do, but you just paid a crap ton of money to Deshaun Watson, so there's going to be a little bit of a battle there as far as what's the overall philosophy for this team. And that's where I kind of find myself with David Bell, where I'm a little bit worried about what is your actual upside. But, Steve, what do you think about David Bell?
Yeah, I don't know if David Bell is going to be someone who you can consider an upside play, but he's considered, I think, a pretty safe floor kind of player. I mean, outside of Amari Cooper, I think he is the second most complete wide receiver on this team right now. You have Donovan Peoples-Jones, you have Anthony Schwartz, which I both believe are like more vertical threat wide receivers here, which, I mean, we know Deshaun Watson has success with Will Fuller in the past, so it could work that way. But I think a guy like David Bell, I had him as like my wide receiver 6 before this draft here. I mean, I was really high on him. I liked his ability to kind of play inside and outside, his ability to kind of do things with the ball after the catch. And Jarvis Landry has had some pretty decent seasons in Cleveland when he was healthy, actually, and playing on the field. So I think Bell has an opportunity to be someone it's pretty a nice wide receiver 3 for your fantasy team. I don't know if he has that upside to ever be a real true number 1, but I feel like he could be someone at this point in the draft as well that can provide you with a steady floor and depth on your fantasy teams. And I think he could end up being a really good guy who plays a lot of the slot.
And I think maybe back to your decision, Dan, of taking Pierce, which again, I agree with, but I think what complicates that decision is that they're all these guys that went at the back end of the second, like you mentioned Tolbert, but I think you can argue David Bell there. You can argue John Mechie. And because they're all none of them are really the same type of receiver. So it makes the comparisons difficult when you're not directly comparing the same
apples
type
to
of receiver.
oranges.
Yeah. So that's what also makes it so much fun, right? Is kind of pick your own adventure in terms of how you want to approach this. Maybe, you're taking Pierce in leagues where the PPR isn't as heavy. Whereas, if you have leagues where there's tiered PPR and the wide receivers actually get more per reception than running back, maybe that's where you lean Mechie. So when it gets to this point, maybe you play the scoring settings or roster settings to kind of make your decision on which receiver to go with.
Yeah, you just hit the nail on the head. They are all different types of receivers in very unique situations on top of it, which does make this a fun debate. Well, Chris, let's get you in here. Of Tolbert, Mechie, David Bell, and Alec Pierce, which one would be your favorite if you had to pick between the four?
I would probably have leaned towards Alec Pierce just because of the upside. I like the explosiveness. I think the guys is kind of reaching what he could actually do. I think Desmond Ridder kind of held him back so that offense in general. But having said that, I think Michi's a really good player. And I just want to say for David Bell, he's one of the guys that I love going into this draft, a guy that I think is absolutely going to be a good pro. I do think he has some upside, and this is where I was going to kind of point out for the offense. I hear your concerns, Dan, and I'm also have those concerns. But I also remind myself to talk about the systems, and David Bell's willing to do the dirty stuff. He's willing to block. He's willing to kind of do the crack block things. He'll run the routes to kind of take attention from other people. It means he'll get on the field, and I think once he gets on the field, he'll become a quarterback's best friend inevitably. I bet you if we kind of fast forward, rewind a couple of years ago, you probably heard something about a Rams receiver getting drafted by Cooper Kupp, about this guy who ran a terrible combine, pretty good in the slot, got pretty good hands, got pretty decent tape. We'll see what he can do maybe a couple of years. He might be a guy, a 3 or 4 receiver, best guy you could have had last year for fantasy football. So I do think, not to say David Bell will be that, but Deshaun Watson doesn't hurt when you have a quarterback like that kind of waiting, throwing you the ball. I think his upside is fantastic and a great pick.
Kyle, you got a minute for your pick. Talk us through what you're looking at, man.
Well, I want to just touch on Rachaad White going as the RB8 in this class. I haven't seen him from an RB ranking point go that late in any rookie draft yet.
No, I haven't either. That's why I was hopefully he was falling the way he was going there.
So crazy value for the guy that I have is the RB3 still. Pre-draft was the case after the combine, not quite before the combine, but showing what he did, close to Breece Hall's level of athleticism. And I like the landing spot compared to James Cook, just simply the quarterback seems like they're more willing to dump down. And I know Fournette's there a little longer than, say, what Buffalo has. So maybe that's the drawback there. But I've White's the only player I have multiple shares of a rookie draft so far. And I've gotten him a lot in that type of range, 206 to 202 to 208, anywhere in there, really. But I'm going to stick with running back here. My pre-draft RB4, he fell to the 6th round. But to the Cardinals, and I think a good landing spot with a good offense that has a chance to score, and I think a depth chart he could immediately be the main backup with. So I'll go with Keontae Ingram here at the 302. Pretty happy with that pick. I know rookie draft, maybe that's a little bit of a reach, but it's a mock. So maybe that's I'm also more willing to reach, also knowing my next pick is 411. Probably not going to make it there. Again, RB9 for me. He's the highest guy on the board, so I'm sticking to the board and taking Ingram.
Well, look, I like the Ingram pick. I think a lot of people are sleeping on the Ingram pick. James Conner gets hurt, people. Newsflash for you. Like, the guy does not play 16 games, and now that Chase Edmonds is not there, well, I think Ingram, to me, is the clear-cut handcuff. It ain't Benjamin. That ship sailed. So I like the pick there.
I mean, I like Benjamin and Ward tape-wise. Like, I liked those guys, but I like Ingram more. Like, from a prospect, I have him kind of a tier above those guys. So I think he has the better vision than Benjamin. That seemed to be the one big drawback, was almost the mental side of the game, because physically pretty decent, but Ingram also had a pretty good combine. So I don't think Benjamin's physically better than Ingram. And I think Ingram, maybe now Benjamin's learned something being in the NFL, but I think Ingram already comes in as a prospect much more NFL ready than what Benjamin was.
More physically built to do so.
Good, yeah, right, exactly, Chris. He's built to do so and take on that role 100%. So after Kyle made his pick there with Ingram, we saw a little run at quarterback. Malik Willis comes off the board. Desmond Ridder comes off the board. And I think it's real simple. Good. That's where they should come off. Your third round of a 1-quarterback league. They have some upside because they're both mobile. Good. Steve, were you going to say something?
I was going to say good for Pickett going so early, just because good for me, right? Okay, it ensured I'd get a guy like Mechie when I saw Pickett go off the board as early as he did in the middle of the second. So I was happy there. But yeah, I felt that was, I don't know, I'm still feeling this is probably still a little early for all these quarterbacks in a 1-quarterback league. Maybe maybe Pickett's end of the second after that wide receiver tier probably is more appropriate. And these guys maybe, again, end of the third rather than mid third, but that's just me here.
Well, let me challenge you on that real quick, because I know for me, I definitely have Willis and Ritter with their fantasy upside ahead of Kenny Pickett. I don't care that he went in the first round to the Steelers. That dude's a bum.
I wasn't so high on Pickett pre-draft. You know what? In a one quarterback league where you don't really need the safety floor, you're only purely looking upside, it probably makes sense. I'm kind of coming from the super flex mold of more of my rookie drafts where, I mean, I took Pickett at 106 in a league where there's 2 super flex spots as well as the 1 QB spot. So the ability to start up to 3 quarterbacks every week kind of does push up the value. And absolutely, like Trevor Lawrence, Carson Wentz, Sam Darnold, not a good QB room. And I have a few 23 picks already, knowing that I'm probably going to add quarterbacks next year, but start adding to that QB room now. So that's why I took Pickett there. But there's also, back to what I said earlier, no league formats. I had a bunch of other late firsts and did not want to take Pickett in any of those other leagues. And this is, well, if there's going to be a league to do it, this seems like the one. So I'll maybe reach at the 106, knowing that he really is one of one in Superflex in that first round quarterback draft capital, right? Like whereas I did, if I traded back even one spot, that might have been too much. I didn't really want the receivers there. So that's where, again, know your leagues and pick your spots to reach on the guys you want to in the certain spots.
I like it. So we got to go rapid fire to close out the draft here because we only got 4 minutes left. I went with Romeo Doubs as my next pick. Yes, I have 3 receivers. I'm well aware. I'm taking best player available, and these are the best players that are falling to me at my spots. Romeo Doubs, I think, has a great skill set as far as being able to be that possession secondary complement wide receiver. I actually think he complements Watson right off the bat really well, but he's that guy who's going to go inside, outside, runs pristine routes, and I think in some ways might be more of an Aaron Rodgers safety blanket to move the change this upcoming year. I love the sound effects coming out of Sleeper there. And then those go to Steve there, because you came up with your pick in the 3rd round with Justin Ross.
Oh yeah, I mean, I was hoping when you guys wouldn't pick him, to be honest here. And with Ross, guys, he's an undrafted free agent. Obviously you don't have as much leeway and room to fail early on in his offseason this year, but he's got tremendous upside. I mean, yes, he's obviously dealt with some major injuries over the last 2 years, which basically forced him not to play the last 2 seasons, but he ends up in a fantastic situation with the Chiefs. And if this man can make the roster and make some noise, he could be really good in the 3rd round at this point. You don't have anyone there that you could say in a long shot could be a wide receiver 1, really. And these last 2 rounds, Ross could potentially, and again, it's a long shot still, but potentially his talent could make him one day possible a wide receiver 1. So in the 3rd round, it just made so much sense.
Yeah, everybody wants to try to get the wide receiver for Patrick Mahomes. We skip ahead to Chris. He took Shakir and he took Otten. So walk us through those 2 picks quickly.
Oh, yeah, some bastard took Romeo Doubs, which I was hoping was going to fall to me because I love Romeo Doubs, and I 100% agree with your point of view. And I think he's going to definitely be Aaron Rodgers, the guy that he love to run the ball to. I went with the guys that I think that, kind of rounding off, was a little bit hard for me to kind of end it. There's a couple guys still on the board that I really did like, but I wanted to go with 2 guys that I think are going to be starters sooner than later. And I think Khalil Shakir is a guy that we definitely disagree on what we think he's going to be necessarily, but I think he's in a great spot in Buffalo. I think he's a guy that's going to be that slot receiver to kind of replace Cole Beasley moving forward. And I don't think McKenzie's a guy that I think is the long-term future guy there. I think you look at his offense, kind of how they're predicated with Diggs on the outside and Williams on the other side, and then other kid on the other side. This guy's going to be the slot receiver for them. We saw Cole Beasley be very productive, and I think this guy's got way more explosiveness after the catching the ball. And then I go with K-Dot, and the guy that I just absolutely love. Talked about, Tampa Bay situation. I do have a little question about Rachaad White, Tampa Bay, when Brady's not the quarterback. What will his future be? What will he really kind of have? But what I don't have a concern about is the tight end position will still be something Tampa Bay utilizes. And Cade Otton, to me, was one of the guys I absolutely love coming into this year. I know he got banged up in Washington this past year, but it reminds me a lot of Mark Andrews. And actually could block as well. So you put those 2 guys out there. A guy we saw, we've seen great. We've seen O.J. Howard. You've seen Gronk all be successful in this system. So this is a guy that I think is kind of carry that torch. Gronk isn't going to play much longer. This guy, I think, is going to be one of those guys you're going to wish to have in your tight ends moving forward.
Steve, you were like me. You took 3 receivers and finally took a running back in the 4th round. Walk us through that quickly.
Yeah, I mean, Davis Price, I mean, third round capital in the fourth round of your rookie drafts. San Francisco 49ers have been a team that can throw almost any running back out there and it can produce for you. I mean, if you had Elijah Mitchell who did really well and you have a pretty decent core already, why go after David Pierce? Who knows still? I don't even know still. But in the fourth round, it's a home run. It's a Hail Mary pick, which could end up providing big upside early on or potential upside early on. So it was a pretty easy pick for the fourth round at this point.
Yeah, I just wanted to take a running back myself here in the fourth round, which is why I went with Jerome Ford. There's some upside here. He might be the handcuff to Nick Chubb. Maybe Kareem Hunt moves on after this year when his contract is up. This is still going to be a Kevin Stefanski. Even if they throw the ball a little bit more with Deshaun Watson, I do like Ford in that scheme, in that system. So just taking some upside really morally for 2023, although we did see third and fourth string running backs hit the field last year at Cleveland because of injuries. I don't know if that happened again, but we'll see. And then Kyle, you took Tyquan Thornton. Cap us off, man.
Well, it's the only wide receiver to go in the fourth round. It seemed weird to not see any blue in that round, so I had to correct that. But I was thinking like you, Dan. Okay, I was thinking I'm going to take a running back, but my highest ranked running back is Pierre Strong, Pierre Strong. And so I'm thinking on the same team, am I taking the fourth round NFL draft running back or the second round NFL draft wide receiver? Probably going with the wide receiver and following the draft capital. That's purely what this pick is about. So
was Robinson already off the board?
Brian Robinson?
The guy that the Giants took.
Wandale
Robinson. Yes, I believe I saw him go off just before.
Yeah, he did. In the third round by Team 9, he went off.
Or 309, yeah. No, because that was the other. Yeah, you're right, Chris. That was the other guy I was thinking of, like looking at after the Ingram pick. Okay, who's going to be my fourth? And I, kind of put both in the queue, knowing okay, second round wide receivers. Let's put them at the top and see if they fall. And got the one that did.
We know Thornton can run really, really fast. But that's going to be it for us tonight, guys. I'm glad you were able to come in. Very, very happy that we were able to have these two guests on. It was a great show. Hopefully we'll help you guys out because we're in the thick of rookie mock draft season right now. And next week, to keep in line with Dynasty, and Kyle, you'll like this because we're kind of doing this in the order you suggested. Next week, we're going to do a Dynasty startup mock draft. And it's going to be 12 rounds long for that one. So we're going to be good to go next week. Month of May, it's just going to be mock draft central. After that, we're going to have a best ball mock draft, and then we're going to have an early redraft mock draft. And that's all going into our team profile series, which will kick off in June. I'm Dan Mader. We have Chris Dowhauer here. I want to give our guests a couple of minutes to say where you can find them at and where you can follow their shows and the content they have coming out. So Kyle, we'll start with you and then we'll go to Steve.
So judging from the hat, you can see at Going for Two for anyone watching the video. Going for Two is a company I write for occasionally, but mostly doing a lot of live streaming. I've got the Dynasty Gambit, which is on every Thursday or every 2 Thursdays at 8:30. So our next show will be May 26th. We'll be talking some Devy. We spent a lot of time talking rookie mock drafts just tonight, just before the show, or rookie draft results, I should say. And then, we'll talk some more Devy, just incorporating that. So me and one of my co-hosts, we do play in some Devy leagues. So seeing how some of those Devy rookie drafts are also starting to happen as well as rookie drafts. And then I host the press coverage show. Next episode will be on Monday, May 16th at 8 p.m. Eastern. So John Hogue from the Superflex Super Show will join me. It's a show I'll have a lot of fun, get to know the content creators behind all this great fantasy football stuff, and talk about a lot of their passions and what they love outside of football, as well as some football stuff. We can't ignore that completely. I also co-host a couple of podcasts for Full Press Coverage and write for them as well. Full Press Fantasy Pod and the Full Press Packers Pod. I am a Go Green and Gold. I'm a Packers fan. All that great content, again, on Twitter at Senra Says, and you can find a lot of what I'm doing there.
Make sure you follow him along. And Steve, where we can find you at and what you got coming up?
Yeah, damn, Kyle, you do so much, bro. So yeah, guys, I host and co-own the Fantasy Coaches podcast. We go live most Mondays and eventually Thursdays. So you can catch us every Monday. I know Dan will be on in a few weeks, June 1st. So mark it in your calendar. But yeah, just go visit our website at www.thefantasycoaches.com. We got all of our rankings. We have articles popping up there daily. You can check out our YouTube channel at the Fantasy Coaches. We've been putting some more things on there and hoping to do some more over the summer with redraft coming closer and closer. So just give us a follow, and then obviously on Twitter at Coaches Fantasy.
All right, guys, we'll be back next week, Thursdays at 10 p.m. That is going to be our new time for the off season. So we'll see you then on Belly Up TV. MD's Fantasy Football Show is coming through in the clutch with In the Clutch Sports Apparel, your one-stop shop for all your unique fandom sports apparel with fully licensed merchandise covering the major 5 sports, your favorite players, and all the teams from every major city with unique featured designs that only you as the fan will have. Go to intheclutch.com and use promo code BELLYUPMDFF show for 10% off your order today with free shipping on orders of $100 or more. Again, that's promo code BELLYUPMDFF show for 10% off your unique fandom collection today.